So, my friends around here. All right. Good morning, everybody. So here we have adaptations and the wide world of frogs, lesson 11. So this week we are getting close to wrapping up this particular unit of our narratives and our pourquois. Our learning targets today. I can revise my pourquoi tale to correctly use comparative and superlative adjectives and to include words and phrases to make it more precise and interesting. That is what your friend and your peer in your breakout group is going to help you do. They are going to help you make sure that when you are reading the story, that they are seeing in their head what you see as the writer in your head. And so you're going to discuss and make sure that you use some phrases that really help the reader understand your story. And then we are actually going to, at the very end, we're also going to have some time to read your pourquoi tale aloud accurately and with expression. When we come back from our winter break, you are going to be asked to fluently read your pourquoi tale. And so we are going to start practicing reading that now. And then when we come back, you will actually record yourself reading that and be graded on, all the things we normally talk about when we talk about fluent reading. And I'll review those before then for sure. So one of the words that we really want to focus on today is the word precise. Precise, again, remember, is something that is very specific so that the listener or in this case listener, but a reader really can see things in their head. So when we say green, that's not very precise. When you say neon green or forest green, that's very much more precise in our language. So today we're also going to be talking about adjectives, describing words. Again, the describing words help us definitely understand what the characters or the actions that are happening are more specific and help the reader see them in their head. And today we're going to be doing comparative and superlative, and I'll explain those words. Those are kind of big, but we'll talk about those in a second. So first of all, we're going to think about words that we use, and I know with my class this morning at Crew, we did a Mad Lib that used nouns and verbs and adjectives in our Mad Lib that we did this morning. And so I'm going to review real quick what these are, and then we're going to type in some of the ones that you can think of that might come from our stories. So a noun is a word that names a person, place, thing, or idea. So normally, like when we say teacher, that's a person, place, school, a thing, cup, or pen, or pencil. An idea is more of something that we know is a thing, but it's not a touchable thing, like love or education. Those are things we can't necessarily touch, but they are a noun. Pronouns, a word to reuse to replace a noun. So if I was talking about Haley Booker, I would say she if I didn't use the word Haley. Or if I was talking about August, I would say he. If I was talking about myself, I would use me or I. A verb, an action, a word that describes an action or a state of being. So a verb is like run or jump, an action. It also could be a state of being. So when I say Mrs. Harrison is tired, would be my state of being at the moment. Mrs. Harrison was tired. Then in that case, the verb is was. Adjective, words that describes a noun. Well, tired described Mrs. Harrison. She was tired. So that is our adjective. Or perhaps you have lots of adjectives in your story. So we can type some in here in a minute. Adverb is a word that describes a verb. So it would be how I jump. Did I jump high? Did I jump quickly? Did I jump unexpectedly? Those are words that describe the action not the person or the character that's doing it. So I'm going to escape out of here a little bit. Maybe it's going to let me escape. Maybe not today. All right. Normally when I hit the escape button, it just lets me escape right out of there. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right. So I want you to think about your story. What are some nouns that we could add in our examples? What's a noun that might be in your story? I'm thinking about probably easy. What are all of our stories have this particular animal involved in our story? Everybody has a story about what, Sunny? Frog. So one of our nouns could be frog. What's another word that is for a person, place, or thing or idea that might be in your story? Who has another example of a noun that might be in your story? You can go back and look in your EL book, look in your story. Maybe there's a place that you
Pollywog.
Say it one more time.
Pollywog.
Pollywog. That works. What else? What's another one?
Your characters.
Yeah, your characters are nouns too, correct? Yeah, whatever their names are. And maybe the pond where or your maybe a lake some of you might have. The place would also be. Okay, and maybe a plant. There might be a plant there. Those are all possible different nouns. You might have a pronoun when your frogs are talking. They might have the word we or me, one of those, or I, depending on your story. How about a verb? What are some of those frogs doing? What are some of those frogs doing? Oh, I see lots of yawning today. Uh-oh, it must be Monday. What is an action that some of your frogs are doing? Everybody should be looking at their story. Everybody pull out that story. Give a good look at it. What are some action words that your frog is doing? Oh, I cannot get to where I want to get. Find my people here. Oh boy. I just cannot get it. Why won't it do it? Mrs. Harrison is struggling today. All right, somebody, what's your frog doing? Give me an action word. Somebody.
Running away.
Running. All right. Frogs don't usually run, but I'll go with that. What other things do frogs do?
Hide.
Hide. Good. Another action word.
Hop.
Hop. Good.
Wiggle.
Wiggle, depending on if they're very nice. All right. What are some adjectives, some describing words that you put inside your story today? Miss Lyric, do you have a describing word for your frog?
Small.
Small. That works. What's another one, Astria?
Large.
Large. That's helps if I can type. All right, Miss Marin, what's another describing word?
Light green.
Green, light green. Light and green. Light is describing green. Very nice. What kind of green? Light green. Very nice. And then what are some words that describe run, how they were running, how they were hiding, how they were hopping, how they were wiggling? Mr. Jensen, what's a word that could describe?
A word that describes a verb, an adjective, or an...
Yes, we're looking for some examples, an adverb. So how could somebody wiggle? What's a word that could describe
They can wiggle their body.
that's what wiggle means, but what would how could
Wiggle fast.
Okay, you could wiggle fast. What else? We wiggle quickly? Could we wiggle slowly? Could we wiggle? Yep, I see some of you wiggling. was awesome. So how could you wiggle? How? Ooh, didn't quite understand that one.
Normal.
Normal. Yeah, that's hard to. That's not really a description though, because then if you don't want a normal wiggling, Moran, what's another one?
Crazy.
Ah, crazily. All right. Crazily. All right. So based on what those are different types of words. Today we're going to be talking about adjectives. So we're really going to focus on words that describe nouns or pronouns. And so when we're doing that, we are going to look at comparative. So you saw some words this morning that were a little confusing. The first one we're going to talk about is comparative. So if you look inside comparative, what word do you see inside comparative? Who sees a root word in there? A root word in comparative. Looking through my friends. Marin, you're awake and ready to rock today. Good job. What word do you see inside of comparative?
Compare.
Exactly. Compare. Now, the normal word compare has an E in it, but when we added a tiv, we had to take that E part out. But that word compare is in there. So when you compare things, what are you doing? You're judging them. And like, so if you were comparing Mrs. Harrison to Mrs. Aubin, you would say Mrs. Aubin is perhaps shorter than Mrs. Harrison. Mrs. Aubin is smilier than Mrs. Harrison. Mrs. Harrison is crazier than Mrs. Aubin. So we are comparing the two people. Or in this case, we're going to be comparing some frogs. So if we were doing I've got a picture there of some different frogs. And you could compare, if you looked at them, they are definitely different. So you could come up with some words that might describe one versus the other. So we're going to do a little thing here. I'm going to get into present mode again. And all right, so this matches a page that it doesn't start with matching the right page. So I'm going to do the first one, and then we're going to bop onto your EL workbook here in a little bit. So let's think. So first we see comparative. We're going to compare two things for right now. So if that frog, the first frog, this one here, is big, what word would we put in for this one right here? If this one is big, what would be a word that could compare both of the two of them? Big, and then this one is what, Sunny? Do you think?
Smaller.
No, this one with the arrow.
Bigger.
Bigger. Very good. Excellent. So if that one's big, then that one is bigger. How about this one? If this one is spotty, what would this one be? Ooh, I have some. Josh, Carter.
Spottier.
Spottier. Very good. Spottier. All right. And then so then the next thing we're going to talk about is superlative adjective. So comparative, we compare two. Superlative, do you see a word in there? Super. We have something super. So that's going to be when we have three of something. So let's look at three of something. So this one is big. This one is bigger. What's this other one going to be? What do you think he's going to be? If we bigger, and what do you think? I'm trying to get some more faces. Surnay, what do you think that's going to be? Biggest. Very good. There's our biggest. All right. If this one is spotty, not very spotty, and this one's spottier, what's our last one going to be? What kind of little guy is he going to be? What do you think based on what we've got so far? Got a pattern going there, don't we? All right. So let's see. Cooper, what do you think is going to come next?
Spotless? Oh, wait, no.
It's going to start with spot. You're right. Spotty, spottier, spotty.
Spottiest.
Yeah, spottiest. Very good. He's the spottiest of them all. When we have 3 of them, when we're putting, so if you notice here, we have a theme going here. So let's see if, okay, so in your workbook, I want you to turn to, in your EL workbook, turn to page 37. I'm going to get out of here for a minute and get to my dot camera. Everybody find page 37 in their pencil. We did some of these together. We're going to do some of them. We're going to do, okay. So on page 37, it looks like this. Give me a thumbs up when you're there. Page 37. Robert, did you find it, buddy? Yep, good. All right, Mr. Cooper's there. Mr. Charlie's there. Mr. Noah's there. Mr. Leo and Lucas. Cerne's there. Elaine is there. Astrid is there. Miss Moran is there. I lost Jensen. All right, my friend, where are you? There you are. Thank you, bud. All right. So what do you think would be our comparative adjective for wide? What would we have for wide? Here's wide, and then we have 2. If he's more wide, what would we say? What's the proper one? We would say, oh, I have a hand up, but I can't find it. Miss Astrid, what do you think?
Wider.
Very good. Wider. Very good. And then what? So you're writing, hey, Josh Carter, we're writing this in our book, buddy. Are you on page 37? Because we're filling it out. Okay. Get it in there for me, my friend. Excellent. Leo, what do you think our superlative is going to be? Wide, wider, and then the third guy is the?
Widest.
Very good. Everybody get that in there. Widest. Excellent. Excellent. And then we just did this one. Spottier. Now, what did you notice when I put spottier? What letter is now missing, Elena? Miss Elena, what letter is missing that was here that's not here in our work? What letter do you notice is missing? The Y, right? The Y is missing. What took place of the Y when I added ER, Miss Elena? What took place of the Y? I. Very good. So we changed the Y to I before we add ER. We also do that on a lot of verbs. When it ends in a Y, we change it before we make an ED or that kind of thing. So you're going to notice that we're going to do that for some over here. All right. So Mr. Lucas, what is our superlative of spottier?
Spottiest.
Very good. And we changed the Y to I before we add EST. Good job. Spottiest. Everybody getting that for me? And then what do you think we have? We didn't do these ones yet. Tall. Tall. Mr. Charlie Carr, what do you think? If the first guy is tall, but the next guy is?
Taller.
Very good. Taller. Everybody filling that out. Now there's no Y on this one, so we can just add an ER. All right, Ben Bowers. What do you think? What's our superlative? This guy's tall, that one's taller, but that guy is the?
Tallest.
Very good. EST. Good job. All right. I lost friends. Mr. Gabe. I'm trying to think of somebody to compare to my crazy hair, but so there's somebody who has curly hair, but mine is definitely what compared to theirs? Curly, what would we add?
Curliest.
Curlier, right? So C-U-R-L, and then we have to change the Y to what, Gabe? Do you think? We changed the Y to up here to an I. Would we change the Y here to an I, do you think? Yep, we're going to change the Y to an I. So since this one ends in Y, we're going to say C-U-R-L-I-E-R for curlier. And then Mr. Finn, if I was compared to two other people, what would my hair be?
Curliest.
Very good. So we're going to do that same thing. We'll change the Y to an I and add ST. So here we have a pattern forming here. What do we notice about all of the comparative adjectives? What do you notice about all of them? What do they have, Max Ziesberg? What do you notice? What could be a rule about comparative adjectives? What do you notice? Mr. Max, are you looking? What is something that we can notice about all of these adjectives? Okay, who can help me out? Miss Elena, what do you notice?
EO at the end.
Yes, we add an ER at the end, don't we? We add an ER at the end. What else do we notice about those, Serne? What's another rule or noticing you've got?
To cursive, it always ends in EST.
Okay.
Always,
All right. All of these all end in EST. Yeah, they do. All right. So all of these have ER, all of these have EST. What other rule do you notice that we followed? I'll give you just on two of them. There was another thing we did, another rule we could follow. I'll give you a hint. It's spotty and curly. Miss Haley, what did we have to do, Miss Haley Booker? What did we have to do if we had a Y at the end? Go ahead and unmute, my friend.
KDD.
What did we do with the Y? I can't hear you for some reason. Anybody help her out since I can't quite hear Miss Astria?
You replaced it with an I.
Yes. So if it ends in Y, you must change it to an I. Is it the same rule on the other side too, Mr. Finn? Yep. So are you writing this down? You got to write it down. And this is going to matter, especially later on. And some of you are going to need this for today's work. Because I have a feeling some of you used some comparative and superlative words in your story. All right, give me a thumbs up when you have that all written down. Mr. Robert, I don't think you need that as a hat today. Thank you. All right, give me a thumbs up when you've got all that written. It's a lot. So Mrs. Harrison put some little quotation marks around the letters, just to remind us that that's a letter, not a word, in case you're like, what does it mean? What does that straight I mean? So you don't have to write those necessarily unless you want to. All right, Mr. Cole's ready. Mr. Gavin, almost ready, buddy? Awesome. Mr. August, how you doing, bud? Got him. All right, Logan, you're good. All right, Mr. Henrik, are you doing good? You have those written down? Thank you. Awesome. All right, Miss Bird, how's it going? Getting it down? Awesome. Okay. Mr. Lennox, I can't see you, so I can't see a thumbs up, but are you doing okay? Oh, thank you so much. Awesome, buddy. I have quite a few friends who have their video off today, so it's hard for me to tell if I can move on or not. I'll give about another minute or so, and then let's read our story and see why we're talking about comparative and superlative adjectives today. Going to be, hopefully you have some in your story. I'm going to just for a moment head back to my, I know some of you might still be writing. So we had, just back to present mode. So here we had our biggest, our spottiest, and taller and tallest, curlier, curliest, ends in a Y. We have to take out the Y and change it to I and then add ER. If it has a consonant at the end, like big, we are just tall, we have ER. And if we have a letter that's just like big, we had to double the G for biggest and bigger. So we sometimes have to add an extra letter when we are writing our words in there. All right, so let's look at our story. So this is a page from our story, from our Polywogs. We said Maddie was a baby African bullfrog, and had always been the frog most worried about the lizards also in the savannah. Maddie's friends were named Bill, Flower, and Phil. Bill was tiny, Flower was tinier, and little Phil was the tiniest. All right, what do we notice in that sentence that I highlighted there? We have tiny, tinier, and tiniest. We have an adjective, a comparative adjective, and a superlative adjective. And you'll notice that tiny ends in a Y. So what did we have to do with it to make it tiniest and tinier? What did we have to do to that? Who noticed? Who's got that? Isabella, what did we have to do to make it tinier and tiniest? We had to change the Y, right? And make it I. Yeah, very good. So tiny. So in your story, hopefully you have, if somebody could mute my friends, lots of noise going on there. Thank you. So today we are going to put you into some groups, into some peer critique groups, some breakout groups. You and another person are going to be looking at your stories together. Now, you really don't have a really good opportunity to show them your story. You're going to read it to them, but if you want to show them your sketch, you can hold it up to your camera and show them your sketch. But let's think about when we have a peer critique, we have a lot of opportunity to, I'm going to go ahead and mute some of my friends. Hopefully that helps a little bit. So when you're doing your story, I'm not sure. All right. So when you're talking to your buddy about your story, we're going to think about what we always do when we have a peer critique. We are going to be respectful, we're going to be kind, and we're going to listen carefully. It's a two-way street when we're doing a peer critique. You're trying to help the other person and you want the other person to help you. So both people are going to have to listen really carefully. And I know sometimes over the internet, when we're doing this remotely and virtually, sometimes it's hard to hear the other person as well as we normally would if they were sitting right next to us. So just try to be kind. You might have to ask them to speak up a little bit or be closer to their microphone, but you can do that in a kind way. You're going to be specific. So I'm going to talk to you about what you're going to focus on today. You're going to think about what as a listener and what as a reader you are seeing in your head. And you want to make sure that if you're not seeing it in your head well, that you're telling the writer, the other person, what they might want to add so you can see it in your head better. And so you're going to be looking at strengths and weaknesses, so stars and steps. You're going to give your partner a star and a step. And remember, everybody needs to be helpful. You can't just say, oh, that story was great, because that's not really helping them, because today we're working on revising and editing our stories. So we really are trying to help each other make a better story. And both people need to participate to make it work out the way we want, so that both people get what they need today. So if you think about, we're revising our pourquoi tales. So you need to have, everybody's gonna have to have their EL workbook open and their pourquoi story ready to read. All right, so everybody's going to need that out of their workbook. All right, and if you remember, your story starts on page 20. You're going to read your pourquoi. You're going to decide who's partner one and who's partner two. Partner one is going to read your pourquoi tale out loud. Then person two is going to be the listener. And so think about the word choice. So think about the words like we talked about, green. Think about what word could maybe the other person add in, an adjective or some other words that would be more specific and precise, so that the reader is the person who can see what the writer really has in their head. What words could you use to be more precise or to be more interesting? So if you're in your story, the person who's reading to you says something about swimming, you could say, as the person who's helping, how were they swimming? How were they swimming quickly? Were they swimming fast? You can ask them these questions to help them throughout their story more interesting. And are their comparative and superlative adjectives accurate? Did they put some in their story? Because we asked for on that character page to be able to have some comparative and superlative adjectives. And if you don't have any in your story yet, maybe your partner could help you figure out what ones would be the best to add. And then partner two will read their pourquoi, and you're going to go through the same idea. What words could you add to make it more precise or interesting? Are the comparative and superlative adjectives accurate? Does that go with it? So if you remember on our narrative writing checklist, there were some things that you were trying to accomplish on your checklist. So these ones that are starred here are absolutely perfect ones for your partner to help you with. So the first one on the left says, the events in the narrative make sense and are easy to understand. So if Logan is listening to my story and Logan doesn't understand something, Logan should be feel like he could tell me kindly, I didn't really understand the part of the story when blah, 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 blah was happening. And so that I can go back and fix that and make it better. I use words that show when the events happen. So those are the words that we added just Thursday about finally, next, then. Are there words that help the reader understand when things are taking place? You could tell your partner that how you could add some of those in. Dialogue. The dialogue shows what the characters are thinking and feeling and doing. Maybe if you think that there's some more dialogue that can be added, you could make that suggestion. I help, it says, help readers understand important parts of the story by describing. Here are adjectives. Here's what this is a perfect place for you to be a good peer and helper. And the last one, I tell my story in a way that helps readers imagine the characters, the settings, and events. So the reader, as a listener today, aren't feeling like you understand the characters, the setting, or even some of the events, this is the time to share that with the other person. Okay? So those are the things we're looking for today. Super important that you do your job. All right? Super important that you do your job today and help your person. We're going to talk about fluent reading in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. We are going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and set up some breakout rooms. All right. All right. So think about what you're going to do. So think about if you have your story ready to share with your partner. Everybody should have your EL workbook open to page 27. I see Henrik's ready. Good job, buddy. Charlie's ready. Josh is ready. I don't have everybody's thumb up yet. So I'm looking for your thumb up for your stories. Lucas is ready. Max is ready. Good job, Max Duisberg. All right. I'm looking for thumbs up. All right. So everybody, there might be a couple of groups that have 3 people. I hope not too many of them. Let me double check here. Oh no, not a room. All right. Everybody has got a room with like.
See how you like it.
There's a couple with 3 still. All right. So, let me add another room and see if I can make them a little smaller.
There we go.
Oh boy. All right. I think. Sorry guys, it takes me a little bit longer. All right, almost guys. I'm sorry. Making sure Mrs. Aubin's also in a room here. Making sure that she's not alone in a room. Okay. All right. I think I'm just going to end up with
What about you?
a 3rd person in a room, and that's okay. All right. I'll double check them. You might get switched. All right. Does everybody know what their job is? You need to give your partner stars and steps and help them with their story because they're going to be reading them fluently and recording them eventually down the road. And you want to make sure that they have the best story possible to be doing that. So you're going to give a star and a step to your partner, and each person is going to have a chance to read their story. Okay, I'm going to try to give you enough time for both people to read it and to give feedback. That's going to be it's going to be not quite 15 minutes, probably more close to about 12 or 13 minutes. So don't dilly-dally, all right? But do your best job giving some ideas, a star and a step. All right, I'm going to open the room. I need you to go ahead and click join and go read each other. Miss Haley Booker. Miss Haley is not at her place, and Lennox is by himself. Haley. Haley Booker. Haley, you need to be in your, Lennox is waiting for you.